Hi, hello friends, welcome to Beast Recap. I'm your host. Larry got fired from his old job and then later he got a new job as a night guard in a museum. He begins to do his duty on his first night at the job, but he don't know that there will be strange things happening in the museum at every night. Today the movie I'm going to explain is Night at the Museum, adventure and comedy movie from 2006. The movie opens in Brooklyn with Larry Daly going to his car to discover it has a boot on the tire. He then runs to his friend to ask where his son Nick is. His friend tells him that his ex-wife's new boyfriend took him home. Larry returns to his ex-wife's house, only to reveal that he may get evicted soon and move to Queens. He then takes Nick to play ice hockey. After the game is over, they walk in the park and Nick reveals that he doesn't want to be a hockey player anymore, but a bond trader like his mother's boyfriend. Larry is determined to find a new job when Nick queries whether he is truly moving again, and Larry feels horrible for Nick. Larry is seen in a job office. He is being interviewed by a woman who could possibly give him a job somewhere. She tells Larry that a resume like his has never been seen before. After Larry saying thank you, he realizes that it wasn't being complimented. They discuss different things about his resume, including his invention, the Snapper, which is a spin-off of the Clapper for lights. He tells her how much he really needs a job, when she is about to reject him. After a small pause, she sighs and gives him the address of the Museum of Natural History, stating that everyone she sent there was rejected but that he might get lucky. After Larry seeing the museum from outside, he went inside the Natural History Museum. He walks up to the desk clerk to ask for a man named Cecil. She tells that Cecil should be in his office and introduces herself as Rebecca. She shows Larry around the room a bit before Dr. McPhee interrupts to exclaim that children are touching the exhibits. While Larry makes his way to Cecil's office, Rebecca continues working. Larry knocks on the door of the security office and Cecil opens the door and letting him in. He tells Larry that museum is losing money, so they are planning to dismiss him and his two co-workers, Gus and Reginald, and they are seeking for one new guard to replace them. Larry asks some time from them to think about the job, since the job that is given to the Larry is to be a night guard to the museum, and he doesn't like the idea of staying up all night in a museum. At last, he agrees to take the job, and Cecil instructs him to wait outside and he will catch up with him to show him around the museum. After Larry leaves, Reginald asks Cecil if he thinks he is the one. Cecil responds by saying, "Oh yeah, he's the one." He begins by showing Larry the diorama room with the Mayan culture, the Roman culture, and the Western culture. After Larry leaves the room, he cannot find Cecil. He calls his name a few times, and we see a figure following him. Larry yells when he taps him on the shoulder. After removing his mask, the figure reveals Cecil, who is dressed in Indian clothing. Cecil laughs because he scared Larry but reminds him not to mess with anything. Cecil then takes him to see Attila the Hun, the Easter Island head, and the Hall of African Mammals. While Larry's seeing the monkey, Cecil points out they have named him Dexter. When they leave that room and reach the Pharaoh's chamber, Cecil takes Larry to see the tomb of the Pharaoh and the Akhmenre tablet, which he later reveals to be made of 24-karat gold. The three guards are there to give Larry with things he needs as he prepares to begin his first day of work. Cecil gives him his keys to lock the gates and his flashlight. He also pulls out an instruction manual and gives it to Larry. Cecil instructs him to switch on a few lights because it can feel a little scary inside. In a very serious tone, he also warns him not to let anything in or out. Larry is confused by this but goes on working. He switches on the lights and takes a seat at the reception desk and speaking into the phone, which reverberates throughout the entire museum. He eventually nods off, but he wakes up when he falls from his chair. When he stands up and crosses the room, he discovers that the Tyrannosaurus Rex is missing. He calls out Cecil's name thinking that it is Cecil pulling another prank on him. When he hears something down the hall, he clicks on the flashlight to find the dinosaur drinking from the water fountain. When Larry drops the flashlight in a state of shock, the dinosaur hears him and stops drinking. He roars and rushes toward him. Larry tries to run and hide by crouching behind the front desk. Then Larry calls Cecil. Cecil answers the phone. Larry tells his situation. He says Larry read the instructions and hangs up. The dinosaur picks up the desk with its mouth and throws it across the room. Larry pulls out the instruction manual and reads the first instruction, which is to throw the bone. Larry is confused until an enormous rib bone falls in front of him, which he then picks up and flings across the room. When Larry tries to escape, the T-Rex comes in front of him, drops the bone, and pushes it toward him, indicating that he wants it to be thrown once more. When Larry notices that the dinosaur wants to play fetch, he flings the bone once more. This time the T-Rex's tail hits Larry and throws him onto the stairs. Larry then flees the room. As Larry is running, he passes by cavemen who are trying to create fire. When he runs into the Easter Island head, he called Larry as Dum Dum and told that Larry needs to bring him Gum Gum. The head tells Larry to escape as Attila the Hun appears and pursues him into the elevator. Larry enters the room where Sacagawea is on display and he asks her what is going on. She cannot hear him because she is behind the glass. Larry falls backwards and a Civil War soldier points a gun over Larry's neck and fires at other soldiers. Larry manages to escape unharmed. Larry goes up the elevator into the Hall of African Mammals. The next instruction, which warns to lock up the lions or they will eat you, when Larry drops the manual paper into the center of the space in front of the lions. Larry runs for the manual, quickly runs through the trees and closes the gate behind him. The next instruction, which instructs him to double-check his belt because the monkey likely stole his keys. When he checks, his keys are missing. When he glances up, he notices Dexter holding his keys. As Larry tries to get them back, Dexter bites his nose and pees on him. Dexter then takes the user manual from Larry and rips it in half. Larry enters the diorama room and sits there with rage. He then finds tiny Mayan soldiers, who begin shooting tiny arrows into his palm. Larry runs away in pain. When Larry notices the Western display, he moves to stand in front of it. When he looks down after hearing a noise below him, he discovers that his feet have been tied together by some little Westerners. He turns around, but they push him off his feet and onto the exhibit's train tracks. Just then, Jedediah can be seen ordering the cowboys to hog-tie him. The cowboys throw ropes over his body and secure them tightly, holding Larry down on the train tracks. Actually, only his head rests on the tracks. They confess that they are exhausted of spending the nights trapped inside the exhibit, and Jedediah gives the signal for the train to depart. Larry begs Jed to stop the train, but Jed refuses. The train hits Larry in the head, but derails without doing much damage. Larry breaks out of the ropes and gets up. We see an army of small Roman soldiers ready to attack Larry. Jedediah identifies Octavius as the leader. He tells the army to unleash hell, and they start shooting fireballs at Larry. He runs away and is rescued by Teddy Roosevelt. Jedediah yells to him that Teddy will not always be there to protect him, and they ride away on his horse. When they stop in the main room, Larry asks Teddy why everything is alive, and Teddy leads him to the Pharaoh's chamber. We see the Pharaoh struggling in his sarcophagus, and Teddy yells that he's not getting out. He points to the tablet, and tells Larry that the tablet is what causes everything to come alive at night. He tells Larry that it is his job to make sure that nothing gets out of the museum, otherwise they will turn to dust if the sun comes up while they are outside. Teddy helps Larry in gathering everyone, and we see Teddy staring at Sacagawea through his binoculars. When Larry asks what Teddy is seeing, Teddy says that he is enjoying the beauty, and then Teddy says that they will meet tomorrow night. For that Larry is not sure that he will come back. Teddy explains to him that while some people achieve greatness naturally, others have it forced upon them. Teddy goes back to his position in the museum, and Larry starts to walk away. While Larry walking, he noticed that Jedediah was in his pocket. Larry pulls him out of his pocket. Jedediah asks Larry to leave him down, by threatening Larry by pointing a revolver at his eye. He shoots, but nothing comes out. Then Larry takes him back to the diorama room, just as the sun rises, and everything goes back to the way it was. When Cecil and the other guards enters the museum, Larry surprises them by jumping out. He tells them that everything in the museum comes to life at night. Cecil explains that if they told him, he never would have believed them. Larry quits and exits the museum. On the museum steps, Larry encounters Nick on his way to school. Nick tells him that he loves that Larry works at the museum. Larry promises to give Nick a tour sometime. Now Larry needs to return inside and get his job back. Dr. McPhee calls Larry to the diorama room to find that a Roman figure is in the stockades in the Western culture diorama. Thinking that Larry did it, Dr. McPhee warns him not to try anything like that again. Larry runs back to Cecil and asks him if he has another instruction manual since Dexter ripped his apart. Cecil does not have an extra copy, but suggests to Larry that it might be helpful to read about history. When Larry notices Rebecca giving a tour to some children, he decides to join with them. He laughs when Rebecca says that the monkey is known for its generous and loving nature. He calls her aside to ask her if Sacagawea was deaf, since she could not hear him the night before. Rebecca gets annoyed by his interruptions and queries why he is following them. Larry says that he just has some questions and gets Rebecca to agree to meet him later for a cup of coffee to discuss history. Rebecca says she is doing a dissertation about Sacagawea and loves the woman so much. In the library, we see Larry reading books and searching on the computer for information about things in the museum. He learns that Attila the Hun enjoyed magic, and they had tear the limbs of their enemies off. Back at the museum, Larry is about to get ready for his shift when Cecil and the other security guards come in to wish him good luck and to say goodbye. For the last time, they are leaving the museum. Cecil asks Larry to walk them out, but Reginald stays behind. Cecil says it's because Reginald is very emotional. Reginald waits and creates a clay replica of Larry's key. Larry goes off to begin his shift. Larry begins by ripping off one of the T-Rex's rib bones and attaching it to a remote-controlled car to keep T-Rex entertained while chasing it. He goes to the cavemen, who are still attempting to make fire, so he throws them a lighter. He goes over to the Easter Island head and gives him the gum-gum that he asked for yesterday. He goes into the diorama room. He puts on MIT to protect himself from the arrows the Mayan people will throw while he closes the glass to their diorama. He goes to cover the glass to the Roman culture diorama, when he notices them breaking down their wall to expand. He moves over to the Western culture diorama to observe Jedediah issuing the command to detonate the explosives and blow the mountain. Larry tells him not to since all he will hit is a wall. Jed tells them to detonate it anyway, but only a little poof of smoke results. When Larry asks about what they are doing, Jedediah replies that they are working on Manifest Destiny. Larry, fed up, grabs Octavius and Jedediah and offers to allow both of their cultures live freely in exchange for good behavior. They both promise and Larry exits the room. Larry then proceeds to the Hall of African Mammals and tells Dexter to go inside. Dexter goes into the room and Larry locks the door. Dexter thinks he stole the keys and holds up a set of baby keys. Larry triumphantly shuts the gate, believing he has defeated Dexter. As he makes his rounds, and he finds Teddy staring at Sacagawea again. Larry advises Teddy to just go and say hello to her. Larry leaves. Teddy gets near the glass to say hello to her, but Teddy gets away out of shyness. Larry's office being broken into by an unknown figure. He opens Larry's desk and plants various artifacts from the museum, then leaves. Larry meets Attila the Hun in the Teddy Roosevelt Rotunda. Attila moves to attack, but stops short when Larry tells him that he can show him some magic. Attila observes as Larry conjures out a bouquet of flowers, makes a penny vanish and then get out penny from Attila's ear, and makes a handkerchief vanish. However, on the last trick he messes up, revealing part of the handkerchief sticking out of the fake thumb he is wearing. When Attila finds about this, he orders his Huns to grab Larry and begin pulling his limbs apart. However, they are interrupted by an incoming elephant. Larry looks up and discovers that the animals have escaped from the locked Hall of African Mammals, and we see Dexter holding Larry's keys. Larry chases after Dexter, and they run into the diorama room where Larry sees the Romans and cowboys fighting. Meanwhile, Dexter uses the keys to open a window. Larry confronts Jedediah and Octavius, who are fighting on a post, and then Larry snaps at them to stop. They explain that they will never get along, and they continue fighting. When Larry pursues Dexter after running towards him once more, he discovers one of the cavemen is on fire. He grabs the fire extinguisher and uses foam to neutralize the fire by spraying the exhibit. Larry then continues to pursue Dexter. Meanwhile, one of the cavemen discovers the open window and notices people outside gathered around a bonfire. He leaps out of the window to join them. Larry corners Dexter in one of the exhibits and tries to get the keys back. Dexter slaps him and they begin to get into a slap fight until Teddy stops them. Teddy respectfully asks Dexter for the keys back. Larry says that let Teddy take the job, and Larry decided not to come back again to museum. Teddy tries to convince him to stick it out, but he is unsuccessful. Christopher Columbus points Larry to the open window. When Larry rushes to the window, he notices the caveman and the rising sun. Larry rushes to the front door to see the caveman returning, but it's too late. As the sun rises, the caveman disintegrates into dust in the street. A street cleaner drives by and cleans his remains off the road. It is morning and Nick and two friends go to the museum thinking that they will get a free tour. While Larry is attempting to remove the foam remnants from the caveman display, Dr. McPhee fires him in front of Nick and his friends. Nick and his friends leave without Larry seeing them. Larry runs after Dr. McPhee and convinces him to give him one more night. Back at his mother's flat, Nick reveals to Larry that he was fired at the museum when he was there. Larry tells Nick that he didn't get fired and tells him that he can go to work with him that night. At the start of his evening shift, Larry sees Rebecca and asks her how her dissertation is going. She says that she has given up because she will never know who Sacagawea really was. Larry thinks for a while and decides to tell Rebecca the secret. He says to Rebecca that all exhibits in the museum gets alive at every night. Rebecca, thinking that Larry is making fun of her, leaves the museum. Nick arrives at the museum. Nick is seated on the reception counter by Larry, who tells him that the dinosaur is going to come to life. It's the time of day when things usually animate, but nothing comes to life. Nick is upset and believes his father is lying to him. Larry asks everyone to come, but nothing comes. Then Nick tells that they all are exhibits, they won't come alive. Larry then says that there is Tablet of Akhmenra, which gives life to all exhibits. When Larry brings him to the Pharaoh's chamber, he finds the tablet is missing. Larry runs to where the tablet should be and turns around to see that Nick is gone. He runs out and sees Nick going down the stairs to leave. Then they see a shadow of someone outside. They proceed to investigate. Nick finds a shopping cart containing the tablet, and he removes the tablet. When Cecil and the other security officers come out from the darkness, they order Nick to hand them the tablet, and they said that Larry has fired from his job. Larry says not to believe them and instructs Nick to rotate the tablet's center square so that everything comes to life. After thinking whom to believe, Nick eventually turns the middle piece. The three guards prepare to fight. Larry tells Nick to take the tablet and run. Gus begins to follow him. When Larry tries to stop him, Cecil pulls and throws the Larry to the ground. Larry gets up, and Gus punches him twice. Cecil kicks him to the ground once more and talks about how much they enjoyed working there. They explain that the tablet also gave them new life. Every night exhibits got alive. At the same time, they also gets back their youthness. When they found out they were going to get fired, they had to do something. So they decided to steal the tablet. They admit that they hid the items in museum on his desk in order to frame him. Gus delivers a piledriver on Larry's back, nearly knocking him out, as they leave to get Nick. Meanwhile, Dexter opens the front door to the museum, letting everything out. Nick runs into the Pharaoh's chamber, and Cecil takes the tablet. When Larry rushes in, Cecil knocks him over, steals his keys, and locks him together with Nick in the chamber. Larry calls out for Teddy, who comes and introduces himself to Nick. Larry asks Teddy to get him out, but he declines, telling Larry that it is his moment, and then Teddy rides away. Larry turns around, and the giant Anubis statues are about to attack Larry and Nick. Larry manages to run through the statue's defense, and opens the Pharaoh's tomb. The Pharaoh orders the Anubis to stand down and unwraps himself. He introduces himself as King Akhmenra. The Anubis release them from the chamber so that the three can proceed to find the tablet. They find the entire museum battling each other in the Teddy Roosevelt Rotunda. When Attila the Hun notices Larry from across the rotunda, he rushes to attack. Larry decides to meet force with force. At first, they argue and yell at one another, until Larry finds Attila's soft side and eventually gets Attila on his side. Larry then tries to get everyone's attention, but he fails. The Easter Island head then yells at everyone for silence, allowing Larry to speak. He explains how the guards stole the tablet, and gives everyone a task to get it back. He instructs the Civil War soldiers to go around the planetarium wing. He instructs Columbus to lead the cavemen and go around to the reptile area. He orders Octavius and Jedediah to go and take care of Cecil's van. At first, they are refusing to work together, but Larry convinced them by saying that they aren't that different, and pointing out that they are both excellent leaders. He convinces everyone to work together, and they proceed. Jedediah and Octavius gather some of their peoples and head outside to inflate the van's tires. The air pressure blows everybody off the air valve, except Jedediah and Octavius. Meanwhile, the Civil War soldiers catch Gus, and Columbus and the cavemen catch Reginald. Cecil, who is holding the tablet, gets to the van and drives away. When Larry, Nick and Achmenra go outside to find the van, but they finds that van has gone. Larry goes to get Sacagawea to help track Cecil. She finds that he crashed his car across the street and went back into the museum. Cecil suddenly shows up with a wagon and a group of horses. He is about to run her over, but Teddy appears and pushes her out of the way. Sacagawea is safe, but Teddy has been cut into two parts. While Sacagawea stays behind to help Teddy, Larry borrows Teddy's horse and chases Cecil. Along with Larry, Jedediah and Octavius show up in the RC car with the bones still connected, to guide the T-Rex get onto the road. Jedediah turns the car so that T-Rex will collide with Cecil, but the car spins out of control and flips behind a small hill, exploding with a puff of smoke. Larry rides next to Cecil and warns him to stop the horses or he will. Cecil explains that these horses are money carriers and they were trained not to stop for anything but a secret word can stop them. Larry reveals the word to be Dakota and the horses stop, sending Cecil flying into the air. Larry grabs the tablet and takes Cecil to Attila the Hun. Attila takes Cecil back to the museum. After receiving the tablet from Larry, Achmenra utilizes its abilities to return everyone to the museum. While everyone returning to museum, Rebecca saw them while she in taxi. Larry and Achmenra counting everyone as they return to the museum to find out whether anyone is missing. Teddy comes back, having been fixed, and Rebecca walks in. Then Larry go and ask, does she believes him now? She tells that she believes him now. She sees Sacagawea and Larry tells Rebecca to ask questions that she wants, then Rebecca walks off with her. After Larry and Teddy have completed the count, Larry notices that Octavius and Jedediah are missing. He assumes they are dead until Nick tells him to look, and they see them both struggling up the steps to the museum. They both says that you ain't getting rid of us that easy. They salute and proceed into the museum. Teddy says he'll see Larry tomorrow night, but Larry isn't sure he'll still be employed. The main hall is a mess from all the fighting. When morning arrives, Larry is watching a number of news reports about the events from the previous night at Dr. McPhee's office. Dr. McPhee fires Larry again. When they both walk out of the office, they find how crowded and extremely busy the museum is. A chastened Dr. McPhee gives Larry his job back by simply handing him his flashlight and keys. Larry is at the museum that night, while the night crew is having a party in the rotunda. We find everyone getting along while Nick is riding on T-Rex. That Jedediah and Octavius are guiding the T-Rex on their brand new toy sports car. Larry then flips his flashlight, puts it in his belt, and snaps his fingers to turn the light off. He's completed a model snapper for himself. Post-credit. Cecil, Gus and Reginald have been rehired as custodians and janitors for the museum. It's not what they'd hoped for, but they make the most of it, and this is the end of this movie. I hope you enjoyed the video. How was the movie? Comment below, and if you like this video, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel, and don't forget to follow me on my Twitter and Instagram. Link in description. And if you want any other movie recap video, comment below and I will see you in next awesome recap video. Until that, have fun guys.